things that they...
I remember too that you had a contest. My daughter did that, where young people, you know, they had to write a poem or something, and you have that contest every year for the young kids, which is really, it just, I think what the library does is it supports the pursuit of knowledge, and that's an open thing, and it's not something. I get a little bit afraid with the internet. It's like if they start charging for every piece of information that you can't look here and you have to, it starts to get prohibited, and it's the complete opposite feeling of if you want to know something, there's this, and I think back to the Andrew Carnegie story of that I think it was Mr. Anderson or something had a private library, and he let all the young kids that didn't have a lot of money come and see his library, and Andrew Carnegie was one of them, right? And then he, you know, soaked it all up and then became so successful, and then
he became
back,
the benefactor, exactly.
Right.
And so many, I mean, there are to this day, Christina, buildings that are out there. There's still Carnegie buildings that were, you know, built at the turn of the last century and developed. And I mean, in many cases, the library service has changed dramatically since those buildings were built. But
there's still the original Carnegie gift.
There are. I mean, most of the buildings now have been either, if they've kept the old Carnegie look, then they've just expanded the building out in some direction beyond the building so that they can keep the smaller look, but they can still have a more modern type library. But Carnegie was an absolutely major factor in force, and here an immigrant coming into the United States himself, you know, and doing this for our country and helping these libraries. Obviously, he had the vision at that point, and we were all very fortunate that we're benefiting from that vision.
And I think he's one story, a very prominent one, but so many people. I think I read many biographies where the library was influential, and that person read every book that was, and they might not have had a great home life, and they were there after school, and it's just it's the chance. I think it's our old-fashioned way of giving everybody the same chance, and also I think heralding that education and learning and seeking knowledge is a sacred thing, and I think your new space, and it always had that space, and the other smaller libraries, it has that. When you walk in, you get that feeling that this is a special place, and you have to be quiet. And I don't know how
and it has a feeling of community also. You know, to the extent that people get isolated from each other, and even more so now with internet communication, I think the library has a real feeling of togetherness in pursuit of knowledge, and a good sense of community coming together. So I think that's an important feature of the experience to many people. I mean, kids coming after school who are, you know, otherwise might be hanging out somewhere, are there reading or doing their homework together, you know.
Well, I know, like with my daughter, she went to Harry Turner River School, and every afternoon all her friends, they were always at the Harry Bennett. It served such a great place.
As a meeting place.
Yeah, and not just that. I mean, then they could go get a book, and but so with as far as financing the library, it's an expensive proposition in a way. And I think it was Roosevelt. I read this, that Roosevelt, in the Depression, they cut back on libraries, but then he made a new act, I think, to say that democracy was. The libraries were necessary for democracy, but the federal government is only a small portion of what you need, and you need local taxes and so forth. And so can you talk a little bit about what you're experiencing now, and what your plans are, or how you can't really ask for funding, but maybe what people can do to express their love of libraries to our congressmen or to the government, to say, don't forget about us, you know, because I do think people are upset about it. I am myself, and friends I have that are. So,
well, you know, clearly I think one basic fact, which is at the core of all the public libraries in the state, is that they are required to be free. I mean, it's an essential feature of them, that they are free to the people, and it's so that everybody in the community has equal access, and it gets back to the concept of democracy. I think what has happened with us lately, and I'm sure other libraries are experiencing the same thing, is that because we're not actually in the government, and other libraries that are not
separate.
in the government, I think
which is a good thing, I think. Yeah.
It could be a good thing, but in terms of the support by the local government, and in our case in particular, I think unfortunately we get seen as an outside service, and it makes it easier in some respects to cut our budget perhaps even more than some of the more what are seen as essential services. And we feel strongly that that is a mistake, that we are an essential service and that we shouldn't suffer disproportionate cuts. That's one thing, and I think for everyone in the community to communicate that to all of the representatives, whoever they may be, how important it is to keep the library going and open and funded is really important. And ultimately, I think that will happen if everyone is vocal about it. But also, I mean, just so people know, we are constantly working to find ways to access support for our services that don't involve charging our patrons for what the services are, and including things like we have a Starbucks that pays rent to the library, that produces income for the library. We have a passport office whereby people can come and get their passport pictures and get their passports renewed or their new passports through the library, which helps our community, but also produces income to the library. Various we have Pitney Bowes, for example, supports the Summer Sunday program at the library, and it contributes money to the library in order to keep the library open during the summer. And that's an example, but we do a lot of community outreach to get funds from any source we can, and a really important source of income to us is generated by the Friends of the Ferguson Library, which runs used bookshops in the library and in the branches, which they generate income from that then in turn is used to support library programs.
And people can donate books and so forth, right?
Yes.
In other ways to help out.
And there are many people who buy books from the Friends bookshop who read them and redonate.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really quite interesting that there's a constant flow of materials. And the Friends do extremely well because there are many people, when you're in the kind of educated community that Stamford is, there are people who have bought books who at some point or another will decide that they've just got too much hanging around, and so they'll want to give them. And we've been very successful, I must say, the Friends particularly have been very successful in encouraging people to give their books to the library as opposed to throw them out. I mean, they even have signs at the recycle centers which say, don't throw your books out, bring them to Ferguson. Or leave them here, and the recycle people will call us and let us come down and pick up the books that have been left. So it's been a really wonderful service for the community, for the Friends to do this, because it makes it possible for people to have books in their home on a permanent basis that otherwise they never would have.